On the very border between the United States and Canada, where dense forests hide the land from prying eyes and fog shrouds the roads, there stood Black Rock, a village forgotten by God and man. There were no stores, no schools, not even a church, just a dozen old houses scattered among the pine trees. The people here lived in isolation, distrusting outsiders, and rarely traveled outside the village. And if they didn't always come back. It was here, at the end of a bumpy forest road, that Margaret Crow's ramshackle house stood. The old witch of Black Rock. Margaret was a local legend. People said she was over 100 years old. Even the men of the village were afraid of her. Some of the villagers had seen her talking to shadows. Everyone was afraid to go near her house. They were afraid to even look in that direction. People saw her wandering through the forest, gathering animal bones and roots. They whispered that she knew a dead language, spoken by the first settlers who brought ancient curses from the old world. What was most frightening, however, was that no one knew where she came from. The old-timers recalled that she had always lived here, even when Black Rock was still a bustling sawmill. And when the settlement emptied out, she stayed, as if she was waiting for something. It all started in September 1980, when the first cold weather chained the land. One night, Bill Carter, who lived closest to Margaret the Witch's house, was awakened by a strange sound. It was a child's cry, thin, shrill, as if a baby was crying for help. However, there were no children in Black Rock. 5 years ago, the last family with a small child had left. Bill thought he was imagining things, but the next night he heard the baby crying again. Soon, the whole village heard the sounds. They came from Margaret's house, but no one saw the baby. No one dared come closer, and then the crying changed. At first, it was just a normal infant sob. After about a week, it changed into something else. It was a squeal, Bill later recalled. It was like a pig being slaughtered, but it hissed like a snake. The sound was so shrill, it made people's teeth chatter. Dogs in the settlement howled and scampered into hiding places. Birds flew out of the forest. The strangest thing was that no one had seen the child. Margaret still left the house, went into the woods, and returned with an armful of herbs and bones. However, if before she at least nodded to her neighbors, now she did not notice them. It was as if they had become invisible to her. People whispered, maybe she stole someone or summoned something from another world. However, no one dared to check. The windows of Margaret's house were always shuttered, and the door was locked. Only at night, a greenish light streamed from under the threshold, as if something other than fire was burning inside. The mystery of Margaret Crow's house kept the Black Rock teenagers busy. They'd heard creepy screams, too, but unlike the frightened old-timers, the four friends, Jake, Trevor, Lisa, and Mike, weren't just going to wait. "We should check it out," said Jake, the boldest of them all. "Maybe she's torturing someone." "Or caging an animal," Lisa added, but there was doubt in her voice. They tracked Margaret down. One evening, when the old woman and her basket disappeared into the woods, the teenagers approached her house. The door was locked, but the window was rotted from time. Mike, the sturdiest of them, pushed the frame, and the old boards crunched open. "Quiet," Trevor whispered, but it was empty. It was as if the forest itself was holding its breath. The air in the witch's house was thick, as if it were something other than oxygen. "God, what does it smell like in here?" Lisa grimaced, clamping her nose shut. Sulfur, rotting meat, herbs that had long ago crossed the line between medicine and poison. The sunlight barely filtered through the stained windows, but their eyes gradually became accustomed to the twilight. They saw the ebony cradle. It stood in the shadows, as if deliberately hidden from view. "There's something there," Mike whispered. As they came closer, they saw it. A cradle with symbols that neither of them could read. And inside, There it was. It wasn't a baby. At first it seemed like a normal baby. However, its skin was covered in scaly patches like a lizard's. Tiny horns protruded from its forehead, still soft like a goat's. Its mouth opened in a strange grin, and large, sharp teeth gleamed inside. And then it opened its eyes, yellow, with vertical pupils. The creature stared at them and laughed. The sound was inhuman, hoarse, gurgling, as if it were laughing not at a child, but at something that was only pretending to be a child. The boys were badly frightened, and Trevor shouted, "Run!" jumping back. He hits a shelf that held burning candles, and they collapsed to the floor. The flames instantly spread to the curtains, then to the old dry boards. "Burn!" Lisa shrieked. They rushed for the exit, crushing each other in the doorway. No one even looked back. As they ran out into the street, they stopped, panting. "It's going to burn," Jake said. "It should burn," Mike whispered. They were sure, but they were wrong. There was no screaming or crying from the burning house, just the same laughter, louder and closer. At dawn, the people of Black Rock went to Margaret's house and saw only ashes. The wooden walls had collapsed, blackened beams sticking out of the ashes. Inside, the embers were still smoldering, spreading a heavy odor of burning. People dug through the ashes looking for a body, but there was no baby. Maybe it had burned to the ground. But the wind rustled ominously in response. After that fire, the disappearances began. The first to disappear was Harry, the old woodsman. He left at dawn to check the traps and never came back. Men with guns went to look for him, but they didn't need guns. They found him in a ravine. His body was charred, but not on the outside, as if the fire was burning inside him. His eyes were bulging, his mouth was stretched open in a silent scream, and his fingers were curled as if he were trying to break free of his own skin. "It's a witch!" shouted one of the men. However, the witch was dead. She was found the same day, hanging from a tree by the river. The next day, the girl, Emily, disappeared. She had gone to the river to pick berries. When the child did not return for dinner, the village raised the alarm. They found her by the water. She was sitting by a tree, as if asleep. However, her lungs were scorched, as if she'd inhaled the flames. The strangest thing was that her skin was intact. No burns, no signs of struggle, just blue lips and yellow whites of her eyes, as if molten metal had been poured into them. Terror swept over the village. People locked themselves in their houses, boarded up the windows, hung crosses and amulets on the doors. However, it didn't help. It came at night. First, the whispering under the windows, then the scuffling of claws on the roof. Someone saw a shadow, small but inhuman, that slid along the walls as if not touching the ground. It was growing. With each new kill, the monster changed. What had once looked like a baby was now transforming into something else, something ancient and horrible. Those who caught a glimpse of it before it died were the first to notice. His skin, once covered with only sparse scales, was now completely hardened. It had transformed into a shiny armor resembling a dragon's shell. It reflected the light of the moon with a shimmering golden-black glow, as if covered in a thin layer of molten metal. Its horns, formerly small and soft, stretched out, curling like a mountain goat's, but sharp as daggers. And the strangest thing of all was its mouth. Once it had only needle-like teeth, but now it was bursting with flames. Not just sparks, but real fire, thick as liquid lava, burning everything in its path. The fire no longer harmed it. It fed on the fire itself. Darkness thickened over Black Rock, but this time it wasn't just the absence of light. The air was heavy with the smell of sulfur and burning meat. The wind, usually whispering in the crowns of the trees, froze, as if holding its breath before the storm. The sky turned black, then flashed scarlet like red-hot metal. Crimson sparks glowed across the clouds, reflecting in the glass of empty houses. There was a rumbling sound from the forest, as if something huge was crashing through the thicket. And it came out, Grown, monstrous, it stepped to the edge of the village. It moved slowly, as if savoring the moment. The first house burst into flames as the monster turned its head toward it. Flames burst from its mouth. Not just fire, but a liquid inferno spreading over the walls, devouring wood, metal, flesh. People ran out into the street, screaming, falling, burning alive. The fire licked at them like a living thing, devouring even those who were no longer breathing. Some tried to run, to the river, to the forest, to the old mill. However, the fire caught up with them everywhere. Old Man Morris ran to the bridge and flashed like a torch as soon as he took a step on the wooden planks. The Harper family locked themselves in the basement, but the flames seeped through the cracks. They stayed that way in the basement, on fire. It went on all night until all the houses were burned. By morning, it was all over. The village had ceased to exist. Only the charred skeletons of houses protruded from the ashes, and the mangled metal hulks of carts and plows reminded that people had once lived here. And silence. Oppressive. Dead. Legend has it that no one has settled in these places since then. The road leading to Black Rock is overgrown, and maps have erased the place. And the monster lurks in this vast, dense forest, waiting for its time.